6 months ago, I took a knife to my snake plant Helen's leaves. Helen is a Dracaena Trifasciata. You might know her by the old name Sansevieria. Or, if you're feeling uncharitable, mother-in-law's tongue. She's been on the shelf above my desk for 4 years. We've been through a lot together, mainly me nearly killing her by overwatering and her surviving anyway, because she's better at this than I am. I'd been reading about water propagation for weeks. The videos made it look effortless. Cut a leaf, drop it in a glass, come back in a month, roots everywhere, new plant, done. So I cut Helen's leaf into 3 sections, put them in a glass of tap water on the kitchen windowsill, and waited. Here's what nobody in those videos warned me about. The first thing that surprised me was how long it actually takes. Every video I'd watched suggested roots within 2 to 4 weeks. Some said as little as 10 days. I checked that glass of water every single morning like it owed me something. Week 1, nothing. Week 2, nothing. Week 3, I started to wonder if I'd done something wrong. I hadn't. But nobody told me that snake plant water propagation is genuinely slow compared to most houseplants. We're talking 6 to 10 weeks before you see anything meaningful. And that's assuming you got the orientation right. And that brings me to the thing that almost made the whole experiment fail before it started. The orientation rule is real, and it matters more than anything else. When you cut a snake plant leaf for water propagation, the bottom of the cutting, meaning the end that was closest to the soil, has to point down into the water, always. Each section doesn't have a node, the way some cuttings do. There's no obvious joint to guide you, which is exactly why it's so easy to get this wrong. I knew this. I'd read it twice. I still managed to get one of my 3 cuttings upside down. It sat in that glass for 8 weeks, producing absolutely nothing, while the 2 correctly oriented cuttings slowly developed roots. Snake plant cells are directionally programmed. The end that was closest to the roots knows which way growth should travel, flip it, and nothing grows. When I realized what I'd done and flipped the cutting, it was already too late. That section never rooted. So, if you take nothing else from this video, take that. Mark the bottom of your cutting before you put it in water. I use a small diagonal cut on the base so I never mix it up again. The second surprise was the variegation. Helen is a Laurenti, tall, dark green leaves with those bright yellow edges. And the cuttings I took from her had the same look. The pups that eventually grew from those cuttings came in solid green, no yellow edges at all. This is actually documented, and I should have known it, but it still caught me off guard. Variegation in snake plants is what's called a chimeral trait. It exists in specific layers of the plant's tissue, and when you propagate from a leaf cutting rather than from a rhizome division, you don't reliably carry those layers into the new plant. The baby plants are genetically very similar to Helen, but they don't look like her. If you want a variegated pup that actually looks like the parent plant, you need to propagate by dividing the rhizome, not from a leaf cutting. Water propagation from cuttings will give you a healthy plant, it just might not give you the plant you were expecting. I've made peace with this. The little plants are their own thing now. I call them Helen's children, which I recognize is a lot for a houseplant, but here we are. The third thing nobody mentioned was the smell. Around week 4, the water in my propagation jars started to get murky, a little cloudy, and then it started to smell. Not dramatically, not like something had died, but a low-level swampy smell that was noticeable when I leaned in to check on things. This is normal. It's bacterial growth in stagnant water, and it won't necessarily kill your cuttings, but it's not doing them any favors either. The fix is simple. Change the water every 1 to 2 weeks, and every time you refresh it, give the glass a rinse. If you want to go a step further, add a small piece of activated charcoal to the jar. It keeps the water cleaner between changes and slows bacterial growth noticeably. I didn't figure this out until week 5. The cuttings survived, but I think they would have rooted faster with cleaner water from the start. The fourth surprise, and honestly the one that changed how I think about all of this, was the roots themselves. Snake plant roots that form in water look different from roots that form in soil. They're pale, almost white, slightly translucent, and they branch delicately. They look almost fragile, which is a strange word for any part of a snake plant. But those water roots are adapted to water. When you eventually transfer the cutting into soil, those roots have to adapt all over again. Moving too fast can shock the plant. This is what's properly called transplant shock. And it's real even with something as tough as a Dracaena Trifasciata. The roots that work perfectly well in a glass of water suddenly find themselves in a completely different environment. What I learned is to make the transition gradual. Before potting up, I started mixing a little bit of soil into the water jar over about a week, letting the roots get used to encountering something solid. Then I potted into a very loose, gritty mix, perlite and succulent soil, roughly half and half, and kept it on the drier side for the first few weeks. Both plants made it, but they sulked for a while first. 6 months total, start to finish, to get 2 healthy cuttings into soil and starting to settle. 2 solid green plants that came from a variegated mother. 1 failed cutting because I put it in upside down. A lot of water changes. Some bacterial smell I didn't expect. Roots that looked nothing like I'd imagined. Was it worth it? Yeah, it was. Not because it was efficient. It wasn't. Division would have been faster and given me a variegated plant. But there's something about watching a leaf sit in a jar of water and slowly decide to produce roots on its own timeline, at its own pace, that I found genuinely satisfying in a way I didn't expect. Helen is still on the shelf above my desk. She lost 1 leaf to the experiment. You'd never know it now. Her children are on the kitchen windowsill, solid green, doing their cam photosynthesis, breathing at night while I sleep. They didn't inherit her edges, but they got her stubbornness. I'll take it. If you're going to try water propagation, try it. Just go in knowing it's slow, mark your base cut, change the water, and don't expect the pups to look exactly like the parent. Know those 4 things, and you'll be fine. If you want to see how I divided Helen's rhizome to get a variegated pup, that video is coming next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it, and drop a comment below telling me the name of your snake plant, because I know I'm not the only one who named theirs. See you there.